Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the 5th episode of the 11th and final season of what is probably my favorite show ever, The Walking Dead. I believe the name of the episode is Out of the Ashes, and I actually have quite a lot to say about this episode, because it was an interesting case where, for me, honestly, this might be the most standout episode of the season so far. Not necessarily the best or the most interesting, but the one that stands out the most from all the episodes that we've gotten so far. But before we get into the review, there are a few things that I just want to quickly go over. Like, for example, you might notice that the quality of the videos is better. That is because I got myself a new phone, because I record with a phone. The phone that I'm recording with right now is Samsung A52, which is a pretty recent phone. I think it's from earlier this year, and I'm honestly pretty happy with it. I'm hoping you're enjoying the higher quality as well. And also, I want to mention something that I made recently, because maybe some of you don't even know, but I actually have a Patreon on which you can support me. The link is in the description. But today I was made aware of a certain website called Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi. I think it's supposed to be pronounced Ko-Fi, but it's written like K-O-F-I. Which is a website that is very similar to Patreon. It's kind of like a mirror image of it in a way, because you can support your favorite creators who are on that website, similarly to Patreon. But there are a couple of differences, like, for example, that its main intention is not really for long-term support like it is on Patreon, where you get, like, for example, on my Patreon, you get full-length reactions to the cartoons that I react to, or all the different perks. On Ko-Fi, you don't really get anything like that. It's essentially just a website to donate in support of your favorite creators. It's not even that you get anything, it's just like a simple donation. Like, for example, if I was streaming on Twitch or on YouTube and you decide to donate me money, it's essentially that. So if you want to support me without any strings attached, it's very simple and straightforward. You can do that on Ko-Fi now as well. But yeah, enough with the things that you don't care about and me begging for your money. Let's get into the review. So yeah, I honestly don't know where exactly to start with this episode, because as interesting of an episode as it was, it kind of doesn't really leave that much of an impact on you. Maybe it's also because I've not really watched any reactions from the reactors who have already uploaded the reactions to those episodes, or just in general, this episode is just not really particularly impactful. It's a very enjoyable episode, and it actually improves, gives development to some characters that I feel like have been sidelined so far in season 11, but it doesn't really have quite a peak like the last few episodes did. Like, for example, for me, episode 3 is probably actually, I don't know. Episode 3 and 4 are episodes that I didn't necessarily love as much as the rest. They were somewhat boring, at least in parts. But even those episodes kind of had peak moments that I really enjoyed. Like, for example, for the episode 3, we had the opening sequence, which was the craziest opening sequence, and just the battle and tense fight between two groups we've had in a long time, honestly. I can't really say accurately since when, but we haven't had such a tense battle for a long time. And for episode 4, I mean, at least the scenes with the Pope were intense, and the scene at the end where he burns that guy alive, that was also pretty intense, and the peak of the episode in a way. But this episode, Out of the Ashes, doesn't really quite have that, because I guess it could also be because it's not necessarily juggling only one storyline, but more like a couple. And I honestly kind of like that about it, because so far with the episodes that we've had so far in season 11, it's been very, I don't know how to say it. It feels like it has felt very separated. Like, we have the main storyline, which is that our group needs supplies to survive, and they're going to fight the Reapers to free Meridian and get supplies from there, essentially. But we haven't really had much of plot in Alexandria itself, so I don't know. It feels like we've kind of had this kind of minor plot be stretched into a couple episodes, and it feels kind of empty. It doesn't feel as connected with anything beforehand. So I don't know. It feels like I don't know, maybe a mini series that we're having right now. Not really a new season, but like a mini series. It kind of feels more like some people asked whether we were going to connect season 11 more with season 10C or as its own thing. And so far, at least for the first 4 episodes, it definitely feels more in line with 10C. This episode, on the other hand, feels much more like the rest of season 10 was, where in each episode, however little, the storyline would move a little bit for more than one character. We would have more than one characters get some kind of development or just get a little bit of screen time. So far, in the previous 4 episodes, most of the screen time has been to Maggie and Negan, with Dario getting also a decent amount of screen time, but he doesn't really do anything. He's just there and looks badass, which has been an issue for me for a little bit, honestly. And some of the other characters getting a few minutes of screen time, which is really annoying, especially in comparison to how much screen time Dario gets, but he doesn't really contribute neither to the plot, nor is he particularly interesting in being badass, because we've watched him for 10 seasons be badass, so it's kind of played out a little bit. But I've already talked about this. I believe it was in episode 3, maybe even in episode 2 it could have been, the review for those episodes, so you can check those out if you want to hear me rant more about Dario taking all the screen time without any contribution to anything that I'm interested in. But in this episode, I don't know, it just feels more in line with the rest of the season. It feels like a proper episode of the season. It feels like we're finally getting into it, you know? And it's funny because, again, I think probably one of the biggest reasons why it feels like a continuation of season 10 is because the storyline we tackle in this episode is some of the aftermath of the storyline of season 10, which was with the Whispers, because we do get some Whispers in this episode, and that was actually really, really cool. But before we get into it, I guess let's just start off from the beginning of the episode and kind of go on the recap path as we usually do. So we open the episode in actually a really cool scene. I really liked it because it focused on Aaron. Essentially, you could say that this episode was an episode focused on Aaron, which is kind of cool to see. And I liked it, and as I've said, I believe it was in my review for episode 19 of last season, the episode with Aaron and Gabriel where they met Maze, that I feel like both Gabriel and Aaron should have gotten focused episodes all the way back in season 6, which is why that episode also kind of felt like it had a very season 6 feel to it. Like, it genuinely feels like the episode could have been put in season 6. And outside of changing like the visuals and everything for the characters, it wouldn't have felt out of place in a way, you know. And this episode kind of has a similar vibe of season 6. It just makes me feel like I'm watching season 6 all over again. But because of that episode that we got last season with the focus on Aaron and May and Gabriel, I now genuinely care more about those characters. And this episode being more of a focus on Aaron also makes me care about him more, and it makes his character has more gravitas and importance to the story. It makes me care more about him. Because I'm pretty sure everyone would agree that maybe even since Gimpo became a showrunner for The Walking Dead all the way back in season 4, none of the characters, but I would say probably more like season 6, none of the newly introduced characters have ever really been as memorable, or we have cared for those characters as much as we did for characters in season 1, season 2, season 3, season 4 even. Like, I never ended up really caring that much, as much for characters like Eugene or Rosita or Ezekiel or Aaron or Gabriel as much as I did for characters who were introduced as late as season 4, like um, Bob. Like, even for him, I cared much more, but even he pales in comparison to how much I cared for characters like uh, Beth and Herschel, and even just like the side characters at the farm. I kind of cared more about them, or felt bad, more bad about their deaths than I will probably do for whenever Ezekiel or Gabriel or Aaron or Rosita dies. I don't feel like I will ever be as sad for these characters' deaths as much as I was for any characters pre-season 6, you know? And I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, I know, but the point is, I like that Aaron is getting more focus. I hope that doesn't mean he's gonna die, because I don't think he will, but I just like that he gets more focus, because it allows him to actually feel like an important main character, because he hasn't, even though he's like in the credits. And the same applies to Jerry. His actor is also in the title credits, yet it doesn't feel like he is up there in terms of the importance to the story. But still, we have a really cool opening sequence with Aaron having a dream in which he dreams about all the enemies, essentially, that he has had to deal with in the time he has been on the show. Obviously, starting with the wolves in season 5, 6 ish, and I think they even brought back one of the actors for the wolves. Although I'm not 100% sure, he definitely looked familiar, but I can't say for sure whether that actor that they showed was one of the wolves, actually. It just feels like I'm definitely seeing that guy on the show before. We had a Savior, we had a Whisperer, did we have somebody else? I think there were a bunch more characters. I mean, there were some walkers as well. So he ends up getting killed by them in the dream, and he wakes up. While being shouted at by Mace, that also being part of the dream. That's a fun callback to that episode, by the way. And reminding us that those episodes were important in a way, even though they were kind of like a bonus episodes. Honestly, I'm really surprised that when they made the trailer, they didn't use this scene as a way to tease us in the trailer that Aaron was going to die. Even as just like not necessarily show him dying, like getting stabbed, but him being surrounded by all these people. That would have created crazy speculations. Like, why didn't they do that? Like, it's not even like a fake out or anything, because we would have seen it in that episode, but it's like a perfect clickbait. It's perfect clickbait because you don't have to show the whole scene. They could just imply that he's surrounded and he could probably die. And it wouldn't be as like as much of a clickbait as the dumpster gate back in season 6 or anything like that, because they wouldn't be lying to us. They just wouldn't have given us the whole information. I feel like that could have been a better thing to do instead of having Agatha's death in the trailer, because that also created a lot of speculation. But when we watched the scene, or at least when I watched the scene, I didn't really feel the impact of it as much as I just felt, oh, so that's who died. Cool, then. That kind of went nowhere. I feel like it would have been much better to tease us with the possible death for Aaron. But maybe that's just me. And yeah, I think in one of the next scenes we also have Jerry waking up and going to the toilet and pissing outside of the toilet. Honestly, I'm just not really a big fan of this kind of scenes that The Walking Dead has been doing. Honestly, since like season 7, it's tried to be more comedic, and it honestly doesn't work for me. Like, even character like Negan, he's comedic, he's funny. Jeffrey Dean Morgan is funny. I love all his funny scenes and everything, but it doesn't feel like it fits with the tone of The Walking Dead. Like, I don't feel like a character like Negan would have existed pre-Gimpo times. It just wouldn't have, because that feels so. It creates such a weird contrast compared to the morbid atmosphere of the world that they live in. And that kind of scene of Jerry pissing outside of the toilet because he saw a walker inside of Alexandria. I mean, it's also kind of dumb toilet humor. I don't know. It was just dumb to me and unnecessary. I'd rather give him an actual storyline instead of just comic relief stuff. I just don't like... I don't think The Walking Dead needs comic relief specific characters. And that kind of started happening with when Gimpo came onto the show. He started having certain characters be comic relief when we don't need that. Like characters like Eugene are comic relief. Even though I feel like at least Eugene has kind of grown out of his comic reliefness. But I guess Jerry hasn't, so there's that. So yeah, this episode overall focuses mostly on Aaron and Jerry. Definitely more on Aaron, but I like that they got more focus because, as I said, they are both in the title credits, but they don't really feel as important to be in the title credits. And to be fair, neither does Christian Serratos as Rosita. I think she's like the fourth build in the title credits, yet she is barely on the show. I mean, she seems to be more on it this season, but she was barely in season 10 from what I remember, and definitely was not on the show in the 10C episode, so I don't know. And honestly, the same for Lydia. This episode also kind of at least gives her a little bit of a storyline, which I'm glad about because I like the actress and I like the character and I would like to see more from her. But ever since the end of the Whisperer storyline in season 10 episode 16, she hasn't done pretty much anything important, and I'm really worried that we were not really gonna get anything more important because, well, her storyline is over, we don't have to focus on her, she could just fade into the background, and I don't want that to happen because she's more talented than half the cast, if you ask me, and I would much rather have focus on her instead of some of those characters, and especially more focus on her rather than Dario or Carol, who, as I said in one of my previous reviews, they're gonna get their own show after The Walking Dead is over, the main show. But Lydia, she's not gonna get a show. So the only time we'll have left with her is the rest of the season. And I doubt we're really gonna get much from her. So that kind of makes me really mad because after the main show is over, we're probably never gonna see her again. Maybe in one episode at one point in time in the future on Tales of the Walking Dead, but even that is very much unlikely. But yeah, so there's a zombie break-in in Alexandria, and everybody goes out to fight and kill them and everything. And they decide that they are then going to go to Hilltop to get more supplies, things with which they can repair walls, just like more instruments and stuff. Which is a smart thing, and it allows us to see more of the aftermath of the Battle of Hilltop, which I'm glad that we got to see. I really liked how it looked. Like, it genuinely looked like they had, like, IRL, it genuinely looked like IRL. They didn't really touch it after what happened in that episode, and they just showed it to us right in this episode, like how they left it. It feels like they hadn't cleaned it up at all. But yeah, it was really cool to see the aftermath. I didn't really care about that one named Walker that was apparently a character that they knew. I feel like the show would be much better if it actually had the extras in the background be consistent. Like, they shouldn't, they don't even have to be characters or anything. They just have to be consistent. Like, if I see one person in the background in one episode, I want to maybe see them 2 episodes from now again, just to have a little bit more consistency, and then you can build up those extras even, and make me care about their death, because like, they just named this character but we've never seen him before, and I don't really feel bad just because they feel bad about that character's death, because he wasn't a character on the show, so why should I care? But I guess not every uh, we don't necessarily have to care about every character's death just because we didn't know them. We should just feel bad about it because the characters we actually care about feel about it. But I don't know. I just don't really. I don't really care either way. It works for what it is, but I don't really care about it. So afterwards, after they start putting down some of the walkers of the people that they knew who died at Hilltop, they notice that some of the walkers are, instead of just walking around, walking in a certain direction, they are being circling around, like they're being herded. So instantly, Aaron, like the big muscly guy that he has become, just rushes through and kills a bunch of walkers and just pushes that one whisperer that was circling around with the walkers and removes his mask. Of course, after what happened with the Whisperer in last season, they are angry at him and want to kill him right off the bat, but Lydia says that she knows him, so they decide to spare him for a minute, but they decide to question him about what happened to the rest of the Whisperers. Are there any other Whisperers? Him saying that it's just him and that he is using the Walker just for protection and safety because he has nothing left, and because it's also a habit. And after a little bit of back and forth dialogue between them, they decide to at least put him in the cell at Hilltop before they decide what they're gonna do with him. But once they go down inside of the cell, they find a bunch more Whisperers who are staying there, I guess, trying to survive there. And I kind of like how animalistic, for lack of a better term, they are behaving when they're in the cell, because they're just like crouched down and walking kind of like on all fours. It's also kind of interesting considering certain spoiler that I have for episode 6, which I'm not going to talk about. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil you, but it is interesting. So I can't really wait to see episode 6 and talk about it. But I liked how they were just like, they felt like they were behaving like old animals. I like that attention to detail, you know. And obviously, our group is pissed off that this guy lied to them about the fact that there were more Whisperers alive. And at that moment, some of the Whisperers attack Aaron. I think the guy tries to slice Aaron's stomach. I don't think he ends up hurting him, and some of those Whisperers that were in the basement in the cell run outside. And I really like the scene where Aaron picks out a knife and says, "My turn." Like, that's pretty fucking badass. Like, it made me really think about how far Aaron has come in the time of on this show, because remember the sweet and nice and friendly guy who met Sasha and Maggie back in season 5? Yeah, this is him now. I mean, that's pretty big change in my opinion. I just wish that the change wasn't just visual, because I feel like we haven't really gotten that much specific development for his character. Like, I feel like even Gabriel has gotten more focus and development compared to Aaron, especially because I feel like his character has been flip-flopping a little bit in season 10 mainly, I would say. Because if you remember, in season 9, obviously his boyfriend Jesus died, and he was mad at the Whisperers, understandably so. Then in season 10's first episode, he said that he was goddamn sick of being nice. But then he was friendly to Gamma and didn't try to kill her in any way, shape, or form. And then in episode 19 of season 10, the episode with Gabriel, he says that the world needs to go back to the way it was. So, is he goddamn sick of being nice? Or is he still a nice guy? Like, I don't understand it. Especially because this episode brings him back to being angry at the Whisperer. So, pick and fucking choose. Or, at least if you want to have a two-dimensional character a three-dimensional character who, at different times, feels different things, make it feel three-dimensional and not just like a character feeling a certain way just because the plot demands it to. But yeah, I don't know. I liked him being a badass, angry guy in this episode. I never thought I'd see him be like this, especially in the following scene when he's torturing this Whisperer guy together with Jerry, because apparently those Whisperers were in Alexandria. I think they implied that those Whisperers were the ones, I guess, part of the ones who ended up destroying it when Beta got the Horde inside of Alexandria. Because Nabila's scarf was inside of the cell at Hilltop where the Whisperers were staying. So as Aaron and Jerry were torturing that Whisperer, I really love when Carol finally realizing or feeling remorseful about the things she did in season 10 and being too focused on revenge and everything, decides to put down the walker that Jerry and Aaron are using to torture that Whisperer guy, and then Aaron completely lashes out at Carol, screaming, "What the hell are you doing?" Like, I never thought I'd see him scream like that. Like, it just instantly brings back the image of him from season 5 and how much he has changed. I really like that. And I love how he calls her out, saying that you, of all people, should understand why what I'm doing is right. But also, Carol, showing some growth, says that this is a path you don't want to go down, because her blind hatred and rage about killing Alpha ended up in Connie's disappearance. Which again is a nice connection to what happens at the end of the episode that I'm going to talk about once we get there. But I just want to say that it feels kind of cheap hearing Carol say this, because she essentially got what she wanted. She got Alpha dead, and got it done the way she wanted it to be done. Like, maybe you could argue that she didn't get the satisfaction of killing Alpha herself, but also, that is not really... Like, she let Negan out, so she clearly didn't mind Negan killing Alpha and just bringing her her head. So she still essentially got the satisfaction because she did what she wanted to do the way she wanted it to do, even if it's not the perfect way she wanted it to be done, you know? So it feels kind of cheap, her saying that, oh, you don't get to torture this guy and get revenge because I feel bad about my revenge. It kind of feels hypocritical. In a little bit, even though it's not intended to be hypocritical, because she cares, I guess, for Aaron not going down this dark path of self-destruction. So that was nice. And yeah, they stopped torturing him afterwards, but that was already too late because this guy got bitten during the torturing, but they ended up cutting off his hand at the end, which... I guess it's supposed to be kind of like a nice thing that they cut off his hand, but guys, still caused him to lose a hand. It's not like it's a thing that people lose every day, or it's okay to lose every day. It's a fucking hand. It's a pretty big deal. And I feel like the episode kind of doesn't handle it that big. Oh, it's a hand. You can cut it off and survive. Well, yeah, but it's still a fucking hand. I'd rather lose a leg than a hand. Yeah, at the end of the episode, conveniently, those Whisperers trying to prove that they're good, which I'm hoping is gonna play into something later on in the season, like with them joining Alexandria and everybody. They revealed that they saw Connie getting out of the cave and being alive, hurt, but alive, and again, that's a little convenient, but I'm okay with it. Like, it doesn't really bother me or anything. It just feels a little convenient, and I feel like I have to point it out that it's very convenient that they saw her. Because I feel like, I mean, I guess it's better that they hear it from something like this, where it is logical that they would know where Connie is, or at least would have seen her, rather than our group just randomly stumbling upon some stuff of Connie's and finding out that way that she's still alive. I don't know. but it is convenient, and it obviously plays into what we're gonna get in episode 6, but we're still not... I still have not seen episode 6, so we're gonna have to wait for that one to be released before I talk about it. Although I do have some spoilers about it. You can read it on the Reddit page if you want. Although, why would you? Because, like, I'm gonna be uploading this episode on Sunday. The episode's probably gonna be up by the time I upload this video, so... yeah. Oh, and I almost forgot actually the other storyline in this episode, which is about Judith, which I honestly really enjoyed it. It was really great. In this episode, we see Judith training the other kids. I believe it's Jerry's kids, Herschel, RJ, Gracie. She's training them with wooden swords, which feels kind of funny that they are kids her age, but they don't get to use real weapons. But she does, and she even used it when she was younger, because she's, I think she was supposed to be like maybe 10 in season 9 when we got introduced to Kaylee Fleming playing Judith. Well, now she is either 11 or 12. I'm not exactly sure. Like in the last 2 seasons, from season 9 to season 11, it's not really clear how much time has passed, because from calculations, from things that the showrunners have told us, and just logic, you can calculate that for them it should be 2021, and as we know, the outbreak started in 2010, so it's only been 11 years, but we did have that one episode with Negan as the finale of season 10, in which apparently 12 years ago it was already the zombie apocalypse, which doesn't make any fucking sense. So yeah, I don't know. Timeline is a little fucked up right now. But yeah, she is training them as they notice that some of the kids are playing near the fence with a walker who is actually played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan's son, which I think the son did a good job, honestly. Even though when I personally when I first heard about his son playing a walker, it did kind of rub me a little bit the wrong way, because it feels a little bit like nepotism, because we had his wife play Negan's wife last season, and now this season we have his son play a walker. I mean, it's like, it's not the end of the world or anything, but it feels a little bit nepotist in a way. So, Gracie and Judith notice those kids screwing around with that Walker kid, which, again, I really like that we saw a Walker kid, because we don't really get to see many of those on the show. I can literally count them on my hand, the ones that we have, or at least the ones that have been major enough. But it's cool to see it once in a while, you know? So Judith goes and calls them out, obviously, kind of reminiscent again of when Carl called out Ron on some things in season 6. It feels reminiscent, like the vibe of like, Judith knows what she's doing, these dipshits don't. And it's also very similar to some of the Henry stuff that we had in season 9, so I liked it. Although, again, it feels a little repetitive when you think about it, but it's being done with different characters and with a little bit of a different tone, so it ends up in a different outcome, I guess, in a way. So it's not necessarily repetitive, but I liked it. So she goes to the wall and calls them out, and that one dipshit, who I can't wait to get ripped apart by walkers, because you know that's gonna fucking happen. They're not gonna introduce an asshole kid like that and not have him die in a brutal and gruesome way, because he deserves to die. I'm sorry. But he bullies her. He says to her that her mom abandoned her, which obviously hurts her, but Judith is also a bit of a badass there, call him out, asking him, what did you say, while pointing a sword at him. I really like that scene, because at first it showed how badass she is and how she doesn't just stand down to bullies, but then in the following scene we see her walking away from that kid and obviously being hurt by his statement, which makes sense. Like, she puts up this hard front, but she's also still like a 11-year-old kid. Of course she's gonna be hurt by that comment. Anybody will. Not even just a kid. And again, Kaylee Fleming gets to show her acting chops in this episode. Like, she's fucking amazing. I can't wait to see her grow up and get to do bigger things, because how much she's going to improve in her acting as the years go by if she's this good as like a 12-year-old. Like, holy hell. Because like, she's just simply walking away, and you can see the emotion in her face. It's so powerful. Like, she's trying to hold back the tears. It was great. It was great. Then later on, we also have probably the moment that really fucking pissed me off the most, and I was ready to punch the screen when that happened. But we have Judith walking inside of her house, which I think maybe everybody is living in one house, because that's kind of the impression that I got, but I'm not sure about this, because like, everybody was in her house. Like, the kids at least were all in her house, including that dipshit kid. And when she gets inside, she notices the planks of wood on which she and Carl put their painted hands on back in season 8 when he was dying. Somebody apparently had broken that apart in a way, so she was obviously pissed about it, and she tried to call out that kid for doing it. And I'm still sure that he did it, because who the fucking else is going to do that? It's not gonna be fucking Herschel Jr. or RJ, or let alone Gracie. Which I'm actually glad that Gracie also got a few lines in this episode, because like, she's one of the important kids, I feel like, and I was kind of bothered by the fact that she didn't get like one line in that card playing scene from, I think it was episode 3? It must have been episode 3, because I don't think episode 4 had anybody else's scenes except Daryl and the Reapers. And it was a really heartwarming scene afterwards, where Gracie offers to help Judith fix the planks, and RJ and Herschel also join in. That was really heartwarming, seeing these kids together. I really, really fucking hope that AMC has a plan for some kind of a spin-off set in the future with these 4 fucking kids, because that would be fucking amazing. I want to see that. I would watch that. I would pay shit ton of money to watch that. Although it's a little bit confusing how in the following scene, we have Judith then sitting on the porch in front of the house and crying, holding the plants. She says something that she also said back in, I think it was season 9. She said it to Michonne, where she is scared that she is gonna start forgetting about the people that she has lost, like Carl, her father, Michonne now, who is not dead, but she's gone from the show, and we don't know whether she's gonna come back and when. If she's ever going to come back. And I love that they're showing the toll that is taken on taken on Judith, because she's a kid. Of course, it's gonna take a toll of her, on her losing her dad, losing her brother before she was even old enough to remember him, essentially, and now losing her mom as well, and one of the memorials of somebody she cared for being destroyed. It would bring all that crashing down in a way. And the scene that she has with Rosita there was actually really cute, and I really enjoyed it, because it gave more. It actually gave more backstory for Rosita's character, with her saying that I believe she lost her dad early on when she was like young or something. I don't quite remember, because I watched that episode like once. I wouldn't remember that and solidify it in my head until I watched it like a couple of times. But it was something along those lines. So not only it improved the relationships between these 2 characters, which we haven't really seen interact, but it also gave some more backstory to Rosita's character, which I really liked. It definitely improved my care for that character. Now I feel like I care more about it because I know more about it, you know? And I like that it was Rosita giving Judith some wisdom. Although when you think about it, this scene kind of feels like it was written to be for Judith and Daryl, because, I mean, essentially they had very similar scenes in season 10, like that one scene in episode 15 where she also kind of was scared that she was going to lose Daryl as well after she sees Daryl just randomly kill one Whisperer, because she thinks that maybe her mom could be in this situation and somebody would put her down like this. So she kind of feels like she has lost her mother, so she doesn't want to lose Daryl either, as well. So he tells her that nothing can replace someone you love being gone, but that doesn't mean that everything going forward is gonna break your heart. That was a really heartwarming scene, by the way. So this was kind of similar to that. So it kind of feels like it was written for Daryl and Judith, but I'm actually glad that it went to Rosita, because, as I've said, not everything on this fucking show has to be given to Daryl. Give some of the other characters different interactions and storylines to make it more interesting and to make me care about him. And some people actually brought up a really good point about episode 4, which I don't remember whether I brought up or not, because maybe I have. But some people brought up that this episode, I mean, it's essentially just the episode The Cell from season 7, where Daryl gets taken by the Saviors and he gets tortured throughout the whole episode. But it's kind of played in a little bit of different direction, where instead of him refusing to join the villainous group, he actually plays with them and essentially tricks them into thinking that he has actually joined them. So it's kind of doing the same concept, but going the other direction for it. But it kind of still feels very repetitive, and that's one of the reasons that I think that episode is the worst of the season so far. Or at least the least interesting, because we've already kind of seen this. It's just like, it's playing out a different way, but we've already seen this, so I don't really feel like I care enough to watch it. So it could have been cool to have Gabriel be the one taken in by the Whispers. Of course, it would make sense to be him if you wanted to have some interaction between Daryl and Leah, but I feel like it still could have worked, because that would have made us care and about this plot and the involvement of our characters into this plot, because it would have had more connections, more characters would be connected to the plot personally. Because if we had Gabriel be taken by the Reapers, he's a man of God. The Reapers seem to be somewhat religious, at least the Pope, because he's called the fucking Pope. And they seem to be some religious people, I mean mercenaries who are also religious people, because they ended up surviving a fire in a church or something along those lines. So I feel like it's a much more fitting storyline to give to Gabriel. And wouldn't that be better than just having Daryl be captured by another group? But of course we have to have the shitty Daryl and Leah storyline, which I don't care about. But again, if Gabriel was taken by the Reapers, there's no reason why we couldn't still have the Daryl and Leah connection play a role in this storyline. Because that would have also created another connection with this plot. We would have Gabriel with him joining the Reapers to take them down from the inside, essentially. Daryl with his connection to Leah, and Maggie with the reason for why the Reapers want to kill her so badly, because we still don't know why. Why is she marked by the Pope? We still don't know why, and I can't wait to honestly find out, but I don't know if we're really gonna find out. I feel like it's kind of like an unintentionally overlooked plot detail that maybe was supposed to be there at this point, but they kind of forgot about it. I really hope that's not the case, but it kind of leans toward it. I don't know. We'll find out eventually, hopefully. But yeah, I'm glad that Rosita got that scene. I wish going forward it would be more like that, because we're at the last season. If now these characters don't get some more interesting storylines, they never will. And oh yeah, I keep forgetting about the storylines in this episode. I think this goes to show how good, but also kind of how forgettable this episode was. Because admittedly, I also am reviewing this almost a week since I watched the episodes. I've forgotten a lot of about it, but we also had the Commonwealth storyline in this episode, where we obviously have our characters, our group of characters that are at the Commonwealth, getting introduced to the Commonwealth and seeing more of the inside of it, and people just living normal lives, eating cakes, eating ice cream and everything. And in one scene we have Stephanie and Eugene going for ice cream, because that's one of the first things they talked about when they first talked on the radio. So obviously they would go for the ice cream, and as they're waiting to get ice cream, a lady comes by, shows in front of the screen, and then goes to the front of the ice cream truck. And it was just funny to me how blatant this was. Like, they literally kind of shoved it down our throat. This is the real Stephanie. Because for those of you who don't know or haven't figured it out, and this is technically not a spoiler because nothing has been confirmed or anything, but duh, it's very fucking obvious if you kind of googled any information about who the cast, who the actors playing certain things are, even as far as like season 10 or maybe even season 9. I'm not exactly sure whether she was the person on the radio at the end of season 9, but in season 10, this is the actress who played Stephanie on the radio. So when everybody saw this white woman play Stephanie, everybody was kind of pissed off because they race-bended the character, or at least maybe recasted the actress for the character. And it kind of feels weird to recast a black lady, and I'm pretty sure she might have been black in the comics as well, with a white woman. It just feels weird and kind of stupid, if you ask me. But this was very blatant. The way they showed that, hey, this lady is important, pay attention. It was just like so funny how she just walks in front of the window of the ice cream truck and just walks back. And she doesn't even say a word, which I really like that attention to detail, because obviously if she uttered even one word, Eugene would realize that that's the real Stephanie, because he will recognize her voice. Which, by the way, it also makes sense that he buys that this is the real Stephanie, like the white lady, because her voice, I'd say, is probably close enough to Stephanie's voice on the radio. I can't say for sure because I haven't really listened to both voices one-to-one to compare them, but it makes sense that he wouldn't realize that this is not the actual Stephanie, because the way our voices sound on the phone and in real life is different enough to where one can conceivably not realize something like this, you know. So we also had a bunch of scenes with them trying to break in and get to use the radio, because they were not planning to stay at the Commonwealth. They never were. They just wanted to get some help to defeat the Whisperers. So they're being told that they have to wait like 6 weeks or something to get to talk with somebody higher up. And obviously they can't wait that long, so they break in to use the radio and actually get connected to Rosita and Judith at Alexandria and learn that the Whisperers have been defeated, which it's kind of annoying how the interaction between them cuts off right there and there, because it kind of means that that whole interaction's whole point was to tell the characters at the Commonwealth that, hey, the Whisperer War is over, you don't have to be quick about coming back to us and helping us. You can stay at the Commonwealth and have your storylines play out, essentially. But they also get, obviously, caught by Mercer and are threatened with being kicked out outside of the Commonwealth. But then Lance Horsby shows up, who is a character that we saw in the trailer for season 11, the guy in that cheesy 80s VHS kind of trailer for the Commonwealth that we got. We also saw him with the full trailer thingy at the beginning of this episode, which was pretty cool and interesting. I gotta say, the actor was actually surprisingly engaging, because I thought at first he was gonna be cheesy and uninteresting, but he actually had a pretty big gravitas when he was shown on the screen. Like, the way he carried himself was actually kind of interesting. And I liked it. I'm actually excited to see more from this character. I like it. I know some vague details about him from the comics, but I don't really know much and exactly what he does in the comics, so that's also kind of interesting. But yeah, so they end up not getting kicked out of the Commonwealth because they kind of have a lawyer in the form of Yumiko, because she did reveal that she's a lawyer. But they are going to have to pay for breaking the law, essentially, in some way, shape, or form. And from the previews for the future episodes, we know that they're gonna end up killing walkers in some way, shape, or form. So there's that. And we also have a little bit of a storyline for Yumiko in this episode at the Commonwealth, where she goes to meet her brother, who apparently is hiding the fact that he is a surgeon. Because instead of being a surgeon, he is baking cakes. And I gotta say, I like the choice for the actor for the brother. I actually remember reading the news that this actor got casted for the show, but I kind of forgot about it completely. Because I didn't remember that I had read an article about it until now. And I like that actor. I watched him in Hawaii Five-0. Probably my favorite procedural show, cop show. Because, by the way, I don't think I've mentioned this before, but I am a sucker for procedural cop shows. They're great shows to watch before going to bed, although I don't really watch them as much nowadays, because I've cut the cord I think it was 4 years ago. I've been exclusively watching online stuff and everything. But I really like that he got casted introduced in the show, and I'm curious how big of a role he's going to play in this storyline, because I would like to see a decent amount of stuff from him, but I just don't know what to expect, you know? Yeah, I think that's covering pretty much the whole episode. I know it wasn't the perfect recap way or everything, because I kept remembering the stuff that happened in the episode as I was reviewing it, but yeah, this was just this kind of an episode, you know? It's just the nature of it, because, it's a very entertaining and probably the best structured episode that we've gotten so far, although when you watch the episode, there were some abrupt transitions between certain things, but I just like that we had 3 storylines that it was moving all the time, and not just one, you know? Like we had in the previous episode. So for me, this is probably the best structured episode of the season. But it's not the most memorable or the most impactful. It's just the most engaging as you're watching it, I guess you could say. So yeah, I don't remember the ratings of the episode so far. I probably should start writing down the ratings of each episode so I can actually rate stuff properly going forward, but if you asked me now, I would rate the first episode as an 8.2 out of 10, the second episode as a 9 out of 10, the third episode as an 9.1 out of 10, I guess, maybe? It's kind of like a 9 as well. It's weird. There are some parts which I really was bothered by, like the fact that we didn't get a longer scene with the Whispers attack at the beginning, but overall it was a very enjoyable episode, and it's an impactful one, so I gotta give it at least a 9 out of 10, so you could say that it's also a 9 out of 10. For episode 4, it's an 8 out of 10, it's the worst episode so far, so for this one, I don't know, maybe for this one it's gonna be an 8.1 out of 10, kinda between those two. Yeah, it kinda, that ends up meaning that this episode is the second worst of the season, but I guess you could think of it more of the second least impactful in comparison to the other ones, because the other ones both had engagement and impactful moments, but this one had the engagement but didn't have many impactful moments. It was only with Aaron, I guess, the kind of powerful moments, in your face powerful moments, but there was also some for Judith. So yeah, I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna give this one an 8.3 out of 10. Fuck it. It's gonna be an 8.3 out of 10. Putting it at third spot. And yeah, I liked it. It was a very engaging episode, and I'm excited to check out episode 6 tomorrow. But I'm also a little bit worried about it because, again, I've read some of the spoilers, and don't worry, I'm not gonna tell you anything about it, but it is going to be an episode focused on Connie. Not solely, but it's going to be majorly focused on Connie. And with what's gonna be happening with her, it's either gonna be a classic or it's gonna be kinda bad. I don't know. I would still have to see it before I decide on which way it. I think it went, but yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not gonna be a mediocre episode, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, before we end this video though, I just want to give a huge thanks to my first and currently only Patreon on Patreon, Omari Bridgman. And also, I want to give a shout out to my first donator on Ko-fi, which I mentioned in the beginning of the video that you can support me on going forward. Their name is Timur222. Thank you for donating to my Ko-fi. It's actually thanks to them that I created it because they mentioned it to me. So huge thanks to them. And again, if you guys also want to support me as a one-off thing without any benefits whatsoever, you can support me on Ko-fi. If you want to support me more extensively and get some benefits, go through Patreon. Or if you don't want to support me in any way like this, that's completely up to you as well. That's fine. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, check out the link in the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me over there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos to my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories, or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon, where I can pledge support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!